Hello. So today I'm going to be arguing why the minimum wage should not be raised drastically. I'm going to be running through some of my arguments, talking through the sources, and ultimately explaining it in the context of public health. So just to start off, I'm going to highlight the main reasons why I think that minimum wage should not be drastically increased. These three reasons include possible inflation, job loss, and insufficient effect on actually reducing the poverty rate. So, to start off with the inflation reason, as a finance major, I tend to think of the financial impact of any decision, um, especially a decision that entails hiring the federal minimum wage to some scenarios double. People have suggested $15. I believe the current rate is 7.25 an hour. So basically, in economic terms, whenever there's a drastic monetary action, there's a drastic reaction. And one of the things that I was worried about if this was done and implemented on a federal level would be inflation, and not just in America, but also globally, and all the problems that can entail. So if you jack up the inflation rate through higher minimum wage, then other goods and services are going to be expensive. So it kind of cancels each other out, and it defeats the purpose of what you're trying to achieve. For this section, I cited a report called Policy Analysis by Mark Wilson. So he cited that in 2004, 20 minimum wage studies looked at price effects and found that a 10% increase was associated when there was a 10% increase in minimum wage, there was an associated 4% goods and services increase as well. So this might not sound like a lot, but when you put it on a large scale, it can have so many impacts and limit a lot of food options for poorer folks. And the second reason I want to explain was that job loss as a factor. So if the minimum wage becomes too high for employers, a lot of these employers, just byproduct of capitalism, are going to seek other cheaper alternatives. Some of these alternatives might come in the form of automated technology, especially for a lot of service industry. I cited George Farnstein of Forbes in an article he cited. If automation comes swiftly, the minimum wage may end up being a short-sighted policy, and it actually might hurt folks rather than help them. This would have health impacts of lack of food, poor education, inadequate housing of poor families. If you put poor families out of work, they're gonna feel it, and they're gonna feel it hard, and it's gonna be tough for them to maintain a healthy lifestyle without an actual job. So my last argument is that I did find some data, and it may be considered cherry picking because you can essentially cherry pick for any argument with the internet nowadays, but I found some data that proved that minimum wage doesn't actually increase the poverty rate. Citing again Mark Wilson of Policy Analysis. So in 1995, 8 studies examined the income and poverty effects of minimum wage, and they couldn't find any correlation. I cited the argument in my paper, but yeah, I think it could be considered cherry picking, but I do think it's a bigger picture that it's suggesting that raising the minimum wage rate isn't a fix at all. So that's to sum up my reasons, and I'm not saying that minimum wage should never be increased. I think there should be a good medium between jacking it up like right off the bat, and kind of gradually increasing it to reflect inflation, and let people have a meaningful salary and be able to live their lives healthily at that. So just to conclude, I think raising the minimum wage cap, the minimum wage rate is something that needs to be heavily weighed and considered, and is not just something that you can universally put a number on, like 15, throw it out there. I think you need to do a lot of research and really think about the decision before you make it, and all the effects that it's going to have, and the effects it's going to have on people's health. So that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, thank you.